The unknown. The vastness of space stretched endlessly before the horizon, its sleek hull cutting through the darkness like a silver blade. Captain Leah Grant stood at the bridge, her experienced eyes scanning the readings before her. After 5 years of commanding this vessel through the uncharted regions of space, she'd learned to trust her instincts. Today, those instincts were screaming. "Captain, unknown object on sensors," Enan Clark called out, his voice tight with anticipation. The bridge crew tensed collectively, their training kicking in as they prepared for what could be another first contact situation. Grant moved to Clark's station, her steps measured and calm despite the anxiety building in her chest. The sensor display showed something massive, unlike anything they'd encountered before. It wasn't Sarai or RTH Design, the two friendly species they'd met in this sector. This was something entirely different. "Send out standard greetings," she ordered, maintaining her composure. "Let's see if they're feeling friendly." The minutes that followed were filled with tense silence. Lieutenant Price at Communications shook her head, no response. The unknown vessel hung in space like a dark sentinel, its angular design a stark contrast to the horizon's smooth lines. As they waited, Grant reflected on humanity's journey to the stars. Earth, their homeworld, had shaped them in ways they were only beginning to understand. Its high gravity and harsh conditions had forged humanity into something unique, Deathworlders with internal skeletons capable of withstanding pressures that would crush other species. The alien vessel's sudden movement snapped her from her thoughts. "They're scanning us," Clark reported, his fingers dancing across the controls. "Their technology, it's like nothing we've seen before. Some kind of hybrid system." Inside the Vexian vessel, Commander Trakra observed the human ship with his multifaceted eyes. The smooth, seemingly defenseless design of the horizon confused and concerned him. In Vexian culture, strength was displayed openly, their ships, like their bodies, protected by thick external armor. "They have no exoskeleton," he clicked to his second-in-command. "Their ship is exposed, vulnerable. How do they survive?" The question would soon be answered in ways none of them expected. As both ships maintained their standoff, a third signature appeared on the sensors. This one was moving fast, aggressive, and definitely not friendly. "Multiple contacts," Clark shouted. "Energy signatures consistent with weapons fire." Grant's training took over. "Battle stations. Shields up. Price, broadcast warnings on all frequencies." The space between the ships erupted in chaos as sleek, predatory vessels emerged from fold space. Their designs were organic, almost insectoid, and their intentions were immediately clear as they opened fire on both the horizon and the Vexian vessel. "The swarm," Trakra hissed, recognizing the ancient enemy that had plagued their sector for generations. "They're here." In the chaos that followed, both ships found themselves fighting side by side against the common threat. The horizon's seemingly fragile design revealed its true nature, layers of energy shields and point defense systems that made it nearly impenetrable. The Vexian vessel's heavy armor absorbed tremendous punishment while delivering devastating counterattacks. As the battle raged, Grant made a decision that would change the course of both species' histories. "Price, focus our transmission on the alien vessel. Send them our tactical data. Show them we're willing to work together." The response came moments later, a burst of tactical information from the Vexians, showing their ship's blind spots and suggesting a coordinated defense. What had started as a tense first contact was evolving into something unprecedented, an impromptu alliance against a common enemy, understanding the enemy. The aftermath of the battle left both ships scarred but functional. Through a series of carefully coordinated maneuvers, the Horizon and the Vexian vessel had managed to drive off the swarm attack, but Commander Trakra knew they would return. The swarm always returned. In the hours that followed, both ships maintained their defensive positions while establishing rudimentary communication. The universal translator aboard the Horizon worked overtime processing the complex clicking language of the Vexians, while Trakra's crew struggled to comprehend the soft, wave-like sounds of human speech. Their biology is fascinating, Dr. Sarah Chen, the Horizon's chief medical officer, reported during the emergency staff meeting. From what we can gather from their transmissions, the Vexians evolved on a low-gravity world. Their exoskeletons provide the structural support they need for space travel and combat. Grant leaned forward in her chair. And that's why they were so confused by our ship's design. They build their vessels the same way they build themselves, protection on the outside. The real breakthrough came when both sides agreed to a careful exchange of technical data. The Vexians' hybrid technology, it turned out, was a response to the swarm's adaptive tactics. Each encounter with the ancient enemy forced them to evolve their defenses, leading to increasingly complex systems. On the Vexian vessel, Trakra studied the human biological data with growing amazement. They evolved on a death world, he explained to his science officer. Their internal skeleton isn't a weakness, it's an adaptation to crushing gravity. Their muscles and bones can withstand pressures that would shatter our exoskeletons. The implications were staggering. While the Vexians had developed external armor to compensate for their evolutionary limitations, humans had been forged by Earth itself into beings capable of surviving extreme conditions. What the Vexians saw as vulnerability was, in fact, extraordinary resilience. As both crews worked to understand each other, the swarm's presence loomed in the background. Long-range sensors detected multiple fold space signatures, the enemy was gathering its forces for another attack. They're learning, Clark reported grimly. Each wave adapts to our defenses, finds new ways to penetrate our shields. It's like they're being guided by some kind of collective intelligence. The theory wasn't far from truth. Through combined analysis of both ships' sensor data, a pattern emerged. The swarm wasn't just a random collection of hostile aliens, it was a highly organized network of bioengineered weapons, each unit connected to a central consciousness. This changes everything, Grant declared during a joint briefing with Trakra, their images connected through the still-developing communication system. They're not just attacking random ships. They're gathering data, testing defenses, looking for weaknesses. Trakra's mandibles clicked in agreement. Our people's different approaches to survival might be the key. The swarm has never encountered a species like yours, internal skeletons are unknown in our sector of space. And your shields, they're unlike anything we've developed. The solution began to take shape, a combination of Vexian armor technology with human shield designs. But implementing it would require something unprecedented, direct cooperation between the two species. We need to dock, Grant proposed, knowing the risks involved. Our engineers need to work together directly. No amount of data transmission can replace hands-on collaboration. The suggestion sent ripples of unease through both crews. For the Vexians, the idea of allowing soft-skinned aliens aboard their vessel seemed almost sacrilegious. For the humans, the thought of working alongside beings that looked like giant armored insects triggered primitive fears. But the approaching swarm left them no choice. As the enemy fleet grew larger on their sensors, final preparations were made for the first-ever physical meeting between humans and Vexians. Breaking barriers. The docking procedure between the Horizon and the Vexian vessel, named Shadow Carapace in rough translation, was a masterpiece of improvisational engineering. Neither ship had been designed to connect with the other's technology, but necessity drove innovation. The first physical meeting between humans and Vexians took place in a hastily prepared neutral zone, a section of the docking tunnel equipped with atmosphere scrubbers and gravity regulators to accommodate both species. Captain Grant led her team, while Commander Trakra represented the Vexians. The initial moments were tense. The Vexians' towering, insectoid forms made them naturally intimidating to humans, while the humans' soft, exposed flesh seemed horrifyingly vulnerable to the Vexians. But as the engineering teams began their work, professional curiosity overcame instinctive fears. Their armor technology is incredible, Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez, the Horizon's chief engineer, reported with undisguised admiration. Each plate is actually a complex network of microscopic machines that adapt to damage in real time. It's like living metal. The Vexians were equally impressed by human shield technology. "Your energy matrices are far more sophisticated than ours," clicked Senior Engineer KTZZ. "The way they layer and regenerate, it's similar to how your bodies heal themselves." As the teams worked together, they discovered that their different evolutionary paths had led to complementary approaches to survival. The Vexians' external armor and humans' internal resilience weren't opposing concepts, they were two sides of the same coin. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chen made an unexpected connection. "Look at how your armor responds to damage," she explained to KTZZ, pointing to microscopic images. "The repair pattern is similar to how human bones heal and remodel themselves under stress." This observation led to a revolutionary idea, a hybrid defense system that combined the best aspects of both technologies. The Vexians' adaptive armor would serve as an outer layer, while modified shield generators would create internal energy barriers similar to human skeletal structures. But implementing this design would require resources neither ship possessed. The solution came from an unlikely source, the swarm itself. "Their bioships contain exactly the type of programmable matter we need," Rodriguez explained during a joint briefing. "If we could capture one intact." The suggestion was bold, perhaps even reckless, but both crews recognized its potential. They had less than 48 hours before the main swarm fleet arrived. It was time for action. Grant and Trackrat developed a daring plan. Using their ship's combined sensor data, they identified a lone swarm scout vessel on the edge of the system. The shadow carapace would engage it directly, its heavy armor allowing it to withstand close combat, while the Horizon would use its superior shields to contain the target and prevent its self-destruction. The operation was high risk, but it demonstrated how quickly the two crews had learned to work together. The Vexians' natural tactical precision complemented human adaptability and quick thinking. As they prepared for the mission, cultural barriers continued to break down. Vexian engineers were fascinated by human tools designed for internal skeletal support, while human crew members began to appreciate the elegant efficiency of Vexian biomechanical interfaces. "It's not just about surviving the swarm anymore," Grant observed to Trackrat during a private communication. "We're learning from each other. Growing stronger together." Trakrat's response was typically direct, "Perhaps this is why the swarm attacks. They recognize the threat of our combined potential." The theory had merit. The swarm's behavior suggested more than simple aggression, it appeared to specifically target instances of cooperation between different species. As if something was deliberately trying to prevent the formation of powerful alliances. But before they could explore this idea further, sensors detected the approaching swarm scout. It was time to put their newfound partnership to the test, capture and discovery. The joint operation to capture a swarm scout began with precision timing. The shadow carapace emerged from behind a debris field, its heavily armored form drawing the scout's immediate attention. The Horizon remained hidden, its advanced shields bending sensor readings around it. "Target is responding exactly as predicted," Clark reported from his station. "They're fully focused on the Vexian ship." The swarm vessel's organic hull pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as it engaged the shadow carapace. Its weapons were devastating, molecular disassemblers designed to break down both armor and living tissue. But the Vexians had faced these weapons before, and their armor held. "Now!" Grant ordered, and the Horizon dropped its sensor cloak. The human vessel's appearance caught the swarm ship in a crossfire. Before it could react, specialized shield harmonics enveloped it in a containment field. The capture was successful, but what they found inside the swarm vessel exceeded their darkest expectations. The ship wasn't just biological, it was a single massive organism, with smaller drone-like entities serving as its internal organs. "This is beyond anything we've encountered," Dr. Chen reported, studying the preliminary scans. "The entire ship functions like a distributed nervous system. Even separated components maintain some level of connection to the whole. More disturbing were the signs of artificial manipulation in the creature's genetic structure. Someone or something had engineered these beings, transforming them from whatever they had originally been into living weapons. The breakthrough came when Rodriguez and KTZZ managed to isolate one of the ship's neural clusters. The tissue samples revealed a shocking truth: the swarm ships contained modified genetic material from dozens of species, including some that matched ancient Vexian records. "They're not just attacking us," Trakra realized, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "They're harvesting us." Each encounter adds new genetic material to their database. This discovery added urgency to their work. Using the captured biomatter, the combined engineering teams began implementing their hybrid defense system. The process was delicate. They had to prevent the swarm tissue from maintaining its connection to the hive mind while preserving its adaptive properties. Meanwhile, long-range sensors detected the main swarm fleet approaching. Hundreds of ships, each one a unique combination of harvested biological material, were heading their way. But they weren't approaching in attack formation. "They're surrounding us," Clark announced grimly. "Creating a containment pattern." The implications were clear: the swarm wasn't just trying to destroy them. It wanted to capture both ships intact, to study how humans and Vexians had managed to overcome their biological differences and work together. As the enemy fleet drew closer, Grant and Trakra made a bold decision. Instead of waiting for the swarm to attack, they would use their newly developed hybrid technology to strike first. The question was, could they complete the modifications in time? In the makeshift lab spanning both ships, human and Vexian scientists worked tirelessly. The captured swarm tissue was responding to their manipulations, but integrating it with both species' technology proved challenging. Each successful test was followed by unexpected complications. "The biomatter keeps trying to rewrite itself," Rodriguez reported during a critical moment. "It's like it has some kind of genetic memory." KTZZ made a breakthrough by introducing modified versions of Vexian metabolic regulators, compounds that their species used to control their own biological armor. This stabilized the swarm tissue enough to begin the final integration process. As they worked, both crews began to notice something strange. The longer they stayed in close proximity, the more they seemed to understand each other, even beyond what the universal translators could explain. It was as if the very act of cooperation was creating new neural pathways in their brains. This phenomenon didn't go unnoticed by the swarm. Their encirclement pattern tightened, and strange energy readings began emanating from their ships. They were preparing something big. The final transformation. The swarm's attack, when it came, was unlike anything either species had encountered before. Instead of traditional weapons, the enemy ships released clouds of microscopic organisms, a biological fog that sought to infiltrate both vessels simultaneously. "They're trying to infect us," Dr. Chen realized, studying the preliminary analysis. "Not just our ships, they want to rewrite our genetic code." But the hybrid defense system, still in its prototype phase, responded in an unexpected way. The combination of Vexian living armor and human adaptive shielding created a synergistic effect, turning the swarm's own biological weapons against them. "The system isn't just defending us," Rodriguez exclaimed, watching the sensor readings with amazement. "It's learning, evolving faster than the swarm can adapt." Deep within both ships, the modified swarm tissue they'd integrated into their defenses began to resonate with the attacking organisms. But instead of succumbing to the swarm's influence, it was transmitting the combined defensive patterns of both human and Vexian technology. The effect rippled through the enemy fleet. Swarm ships began to shudder and break formation as their biological components responded to the unfamiliar genetic signals. The hive mind's control was weakening. "This is our chance," Grant announced, sharing a knowing look with Trakra through their video link. "We need to push our advantage before they can adapt." The next few hours were a blur of tactical maneuvers and scientific breakthroughs. The Horizon's shields and the Shadow Carapace's armor worked in perfect harmony, each system strengthening the other. More importantly, both crews had learned to anticipate each other's actions, moving with the coordination of a single unit. The swarm's response was desperate and revealing. As their ships began to break away from hive mind control, ancient memory patterns embedded in their genetic code started to surface. These weren't just engineered weapons, they were the remnants of countless civilizations, forcibly evolved and combined into living weapons. We're not just fighting the swarm, Trakra realized. We're freeing them. The final battle became a race against time. As more swarm ships broke free from central control, the hive mind became increasingly erratic. Some vessels turned on each other, while others seemed to be trying to communicate with the Horizon and Shadow carapace. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chen and her Vexian counterparts managed to decode some of the genetic memories. The swarm, they discovered, had been created by an ancient species obsessed with evolutionary perfection. This species had seeded the galaxy with their bioweapons, testing different combinations of genetic material to create the ultimate life form. But they hadn't counted on one thing: the power of voluntary cooperation between different species. The combination of human internal resilience and Vexian external adaptation had created something entirely new, something the swarm's creators hadn't thought possible. As the battle reached its climax, both ships activated their fully integrated defense systems. The effect was extraordinary. Waves of genetic information spread through the swarm fleet, not destroying the ships but transforming them, breaking the hive mind's control permanently. In the aftermath, Grant and Trakra faced a new challenge. The freed swarm ships, now acting independently, carried within them the combined genetic heritage of countless species. Some began to show signs of reverting to their original forms, while others maintained their current configuration but with independent consciousness. "We've done more than win a battle," Grant reflected during the final joint briefing. "We've proven that true strength comes from diversity, from combining different approaches rather than forcing everything into a single pattern." The discovery had profound implications for both human and Vexian society. The hybrid technology they developed was just the beginning. By learning to combine their different evolutionary approaches, they'd opened up entirely new paths of development. As the Horizon and Shadow carapace prepared to return to their respective territories, they left behind something unprecedented: a joint research station staffed by both species, dedicated to studying the freed swarm ships and developing new applications for their hybrid technology. The universe, they had discovered, was not a place for single solutions. True resilience came from embracing different approaches, from forging connections across the biological divide. Their Deathworld-forged skeletons and living armor were not opposing answers to survival, but complementary paths to the same goal, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other species watched and wondered about these strange allies who had done the impossible, turned the swarm's own evolutionary weapons into tools for freedom and cooperation. The end.